So many of you have been asking how our dog is doing. About a week or week and a half ago I had talked to you about the emergency we had, so in this video I'm going to be talking about that. And also last week's video I showed you guys my strawberry planters, the whole DIY project that I did. Many of you showed a lot of interest in that and talked about different things, so I wanted to give you a little bit of an update of the watering system that I did on that. So those are the two things we'll be getting into in this video. Let's start with my planter system. Now I wanted a really good watering system for it because they're going to dry out fairly quickly, being that the strawberries are planted in rain gutters. And by the way, if you haven't seen that video yet, I'll have links up here somewhere to the video where I constructed this whole thing, crossing our fingers that everything works out. I really hope we can get a berry harvest. And we have a rooster now. Anyway, so I made kind of this simple, elaborate watering system, and I'm going to show it to you right now. The first thing that I did is I bought soaker hoses. Some of these are a little bit different sizes. Then I just cut them to the exact lengths I wanted. I drilled holes through the sides of the rain gutter here, and then I just capped off the ends of the hose with these fittings. So each rain gutter has these soaker hoses. I went and bought a bunch of fittings at Lowe's. This is a 1/2-inch pipe, those white pipes you buy, just spray painted it. And so I have a T up here, and then I have one of these fittings, whatever you call them, a cross piece thingy. So I have two of those, and then at the very bottom I have an elbow with a threaded end. So I got all these different fittings that fit 1/2-inch pipe. So at each tee off I did the same thing. I got a valve so I can shut the water off and control each gutter. And then also they have these fittings with a threaded end, and I wanted that so I could put a hose fitting on. And how this worked out, the guy at the hardware store helped me out. This is actually in the plumbing section. I think it's actually a fitting for like behind toilets and stuff. So there's one end that would screw onto the 1/2-inch pipe, and then the other end would actually fit a hose ending. All right, so that's what I did. It was basically just like putting a bunch of Lego pieces together. Right here, some of these fittings, the pipe wouldn't fit into the fitting, so I had to cut a little piece of pipe to put both fittings onto. I'm not sure if you understand what I mean, but it's very easy to put together. A very basic concept. And then the next thing I did is I bought a bunch of hose. I guess these are both called female ends. So this is the same ending as the hose is coming out. So I needed to have a small piece of hose with the exact same endings on each side. You know, usually a hose has the male on one end and the female on the other. So I needed a hose with two males on each end. So I just went and bought a 50-foot hose and started cutting it. I bought a bunch of fittings, and this is what I came up with. You can see it's nothing super fancy, but each valve has a hose going up into the soaker hose, and if I want to shut one off, then of course I can just go ahead and shut this off. So yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. And the really cool thing is Nolan got my water in. So handy just to have water right here in my garden. He's been wanting to do it for me for a few years now, and now just with all the renovations we're doing and digging up so much of our lawn anyway, we decided now's as good a time as any. So that makes it really handy. I cut this hose exactly to size, so it just runs straight into there. I might put it under the ground a little bit, we'll see. So I try not to have too much pressure running into the soaker hoses because that's kind of hard on them. The only thing right now that I don't like is the water is dripping out of the ends and dripping down into the ones below. I think what I might do in the future is take these off and put them so that this part is back in here. That way all of the soaker hose is in the gutter and not dripping down below. And some of these fittings, I just put these on. I'm gonna have to have Nolan help me tighten them up. They're definitely leaking, but he helped me tighten up all these, and they are doing really well. It's just some of these ones down here need a little bit of help. But other than that, it's doing really well. And I'm super happy with that. I'm gonna turn it off now because everything's wet and doesn't need to be soaked anyway. Anyway, before we move on to an update with my dog, this coming Friday, the video that's coming out is gonna be talking more about our chicken coop, how we got it up and going. So it's gonna be backtracking a little bit in time. Obviously it's finished now. But we just got a rooster, and he's really pretty. I need to show him to you and just tell you what his name is. Nolan and Xander. their sense of humor, especially Nolan's, came up with his name. I just thought it was so funny. It fits him too. Anyway, he is a really big rooster compared to our chickens. We have 5 chickens. We used to have 6. But one day, Xander went against Mom's warnings and opened the chicken coop door, and the dogs got in and killed a chicken. They were trying to kill the second one by the time I caught them. Xander came in frantically telling me that something was wrong, and I came out, and anyway, I'm hoping he learned his lesson, and I need to put a better latch on that chicken coop door so it doesn't happen again. But back to the rooster. What's his name? His name is Jim Rupert. Where Nolan came up with that name, I don't know. But he asked Xander what he wanted to name him, and Xander said Jim, and Nolan wanted to name him Rupert, and so they came up with Jim Rupert. So meet our rooster, Jim Rupert. All right, so back to our dog, Coco. What happened to her? What's the long story? Like many of you know, we enjoy raising animals here, and one of those is puppies. We do it as a side hobby, and she actually has a litter right now. She has 10 puppies. They're beautiful. They're so much fun. I'll have some clips at the end with Xander playing with them. He just goes out for hours on end and plays with these puppies. He's just gonna be so sad when they have to leave. So there's obviously things you have to watch out for. Still learning some of this stuff. Right at the beginning, especially after a dog has puppies, like when she was in labor, I was up with her most of the night, so worried about her, hoping everything was okay, you know, and actually ran her to the vet twice that week thinking she was in labor, like, is something okay? I don't want my dog to die. I probably worried too much. But anyway, her delivery went perfectly fine. She's an excellent mother, took super good care of these puppies, just got fat and healthy and happy, and things were just going well. And so the first few weeks after puppies are born, especially in the first week, you have to kind of watch out for things like milk fever. Dogs can get mastitis and that type of infection, but she was perfectly fine, perfectly healthy. And so we were no longer worrying about her. We would put her in with her puppies and then let her out and run around. And we think that's actually came to our demise because, like, we don't like having dogs cooped up in a pen. Like, we think dogs are meant to run out and have lots of exercise and activity. And so we'd let her in with her puppies to feed them for a few hours, and then we'd let her out for a few hours and such like. We've been having a lot of cold, rainy, wet weather here, and so she would be in a warm kennel and then come out in the cold, and I didn't really think much about it, but we think that might have had something to do with it. And the other thing that we think might have happened is we take walks and we go out the lane and the dogs are running everywhere, and she would like run through the pasture where we have cattle, there's manure. She'd run through mud puddles, and because they're such smaller dogs, these are Welsh Corgis, her teats would be hanging pretty low to the ground, and we were thinking that she might have picked up a bacteria and it got into her teat and started an infection, and we didn't catch it. She seemed perfectly fine to us. You know, she's out running around, and then the next day she is just listless and lifeless, kind of high fever. I had been in town. Nolan went out to take care of her, and he called me. He's like, hey, something's not right with Coco. So we came back, looked at her, I'm like, we need to take her to the vet. I'm not gonna waste around. Like, we don't wanna lose this dog. So we ran her into the emergency room. They gave her antibiotics, sent her back, and she seemed a lot better. It was in the evening. But when I went to check on her again, she was once again just stretched out, lifeless. I took her fever and it was 106.5, which is extremely high for a dog. And what happens to dogs when their fever gets too high, it can actually melt their intestines. So I was extremely worried. We promptly loaded her up, and I took her in this time. We admitted her to the ER, and they put her on IVs and all kinds of things. Had to wean these puppies like immediately. It was just a nightmare. We were so worried. I was like crying in on the way to the ER. I'm like, why did this have to happen? I get so attached to my pets. So she was in there one night, and they thought that she could probably come home within a day. Called back, said no, she can't come in, and this kept dragging on. You know, I'd call in every few hours. I think they were getting sick of me. And they're like, no, she's doing a little better, but blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it ended up she was there for 4 nights, and they just kept dragging it out. Oh, she's doing a little better, but we don't think she's ready to get home yet. And finally we were like, you know what? We don't have this type of money. The bills were just racking up. You know how expensive an emergency room visit can be, let alone a hospital stay like that, even if it's a vet hospital. Anyway, so finally we were like, look, we're going to try to doctor her up at home. We want to, you know, just give us her meds and tell us what we need to do, and we'll bring her into the house and we'll try to do everything we can for her. And by the time we brought her home, she looked really well. Like, she was alert and happy and whatever, but what had happened is her infection in her, is it her mammary glands or somewhere in there, had actually erupted or ruptured. And so that's actually fairly common in dogs if you don't catch it in time. It's not really that life-threatening. The reason this was so serious was because the infection had gotten into her blood scene and turned, is it sepsis or what do they call it? Something like that. Anyway, so I brought her home, and now I'm a person I can hardly handle to see something suffer. And I especially can't handle gory things. Blood, that type of thing just make me almost go crazy. So we brought her home, and she has this giant bandage. She still needed surgery, but what we were trying to do was bring her home and take care of her until she was ready to have her stitches and everything sewn back up. And so to minimize our bills at the hospital for her just staying there. So she had like a paraphernalia of meds I had to give her, and I was supposed to change this bandage every 6 hours or twice or 3 times a day. And I changed it, and it just about, it was, I could hardly do it. It was just that. And then I just was so scared I wasn't doing it right, and I was causing her more pain. And anyway, it was just so stressful to me. I just hated to see her suffer, and I was just like, please, I cannot hardly change this bandage again. It just about makes me come unglued. I was that stressed out. Yeah, I was just such a bundle of nerves, and it's not a good thing because as many of you know, I have ulcerative colitis, and stress is one of the major triggers that sends me into a flare. And so I was worried about that, and I was trying desperately to lower my stress as best as I could, but I just couldn't. And I was taking it out on my husband, on my children. And finally the next day, Nolan called me. He's like, look, this is not worth the stress it's causing us. I don't want either of us to snap under this. Like, we have to figure out what to do. And they had told us that we should bring her back in on Monday to see if she's ready for stitches. I was taking her back in the morning. My mom came and got Xander. And during this time, I hadn't been getting a whole lot of sleep because, you know, I'd be up till way past midnight and at the ER waiting for her, waiting to her, whatever all. Anyway, back to the story. So she seemed very healthy. Like, it seemed like she's definitely going to pull through, but she still needed a lot of care, especially for like about 2 weeks or so. Plus, we had another huge bill for surgery coming up if we decided to go through with it, which she definitely needed it. We had decided beforehand that, look, we can't afford more than a certain amount, which is quite a few $1,000s it was racking up to be, and we're like, if it goes over this, like, we just can't go further because it's just so expensive. Logically, we could have bought at least 5 other dogs to replace her with the amount of money that we spent at the vet, but being that obviously she's kind of feels like part of the family, we wanted her here. We didn't want another dog, and so we tried our best. What had happened during her stay is I had found out that there was 2 of her caregivers that really wanted her, that they would have loved to adopt her. And so I was thinking through this. We decided we didn't know how much more money we would have to spend on her, plus all the stress of taking care of her, and we didn't want her to go through this again. There's a chance it could have happened again if she ever had another litter of puppies, so we definitely didn't want that to happen to her. And so I'm like, you know what, maybe it would be best to just give her over to one of the caregivers. And it was like the hardest decision. I called Nolan, and that's what he thought, and we thought, you know what, if they really want her and there's immediately a home for her with an actual caregiver that's attacked like a vet that knows what they're doing, can take excellent care of her, it might be the best option. Take the stress off of our shoulders, and we didn't know how many more thousands it would cost us with the surgery coming up. So we made the really hard decision to let her there. We took her in, and they said, yes, there's 2 people that would really like to have her. And so I just had to sign some papers and give her over to her caregiver. Once again, I shed a few tears. I get so attached to my pets. I know that she's in excellent hands. She's getting the best care that way for her. I just feel probably more sorry for her because she is so used to living on this big open farm where she can run and play, and she's always off chasing birds and groundhogs and having the time of her life, and now she's probably living in town somewhere is my guess. It's a very small yard to run around in. She's definitely going to have a little bit of an adjustment. That was my biggest thing with letting her go. And I have a feeling that the person that adopted her is thinking that they did, you know, Coco a big favor by rescuing her from some puppy mill, which she's not from a puppy mill. Anyway, but it all worked out okay. So thanks a lot for caring, and all of you that said such kind words, saying you were praying for us and everything would work out, and it did. She's going to be okay, thankfully. Anyway, that was kind of our conclusion. We haven't actually told Xander yet, and he hasn't seemed to caught on that she's not coming home. He's slowly forgetting, I think, because he has so many puppies to play with. But yeah, we did bring her home for that one about 24-hour stretch. And I have some videos of that with Xander saying hi to her and stuff, having her there in the house. And I thought it'd be fun to just play a few videos from the time we got her as a puppy and Xander kind of growing up with her and the fun that they had together. And then I'll end with Xander playing with her puppies that she has right here. He just has such a good time with them. So anyway, I hope you all have a good day and we'll see you on Friday's video. Bye. Woohoo! We got a puppy.
I like kitties. I like bunnies. I even like cats, even if they're grumpy. I like fish. Yeah! I like guppies. There's nothing cuter than cute little puppies. Cute little puppies. Cute little puppies. Everybody loves these cute little puppies. Yeah! Cute little puppies. Cute little puppies. Everybody loves these cute little puppies. I love lizards. I like turtles. I even like rats and silly little gerbils. I like frogs and parakeets, but there's nothing cuter. My fuzzy little buddies. Cute little puppies.
Is she helping you plant?
I don't have hands.
Oh, she doesn't have hands. Coco, you don't have hands. Okay. Hey, Xander.
Come on, buddy.
Look who's here. Who is it?
Coco.
Are you gonna give her a hug? Be real gentle. Down, there you go. She wants to say hi.
Hi.
Be real careful, okay? Just pet her head. There you go. It's Coco. She has this on because she's kind of hurting. So you have to be real careful so we don't hurt her. Okay. You know, be careful with her. Be real nice. She wants to be with Xander. Yes, she does. She likes Xander.
Cute little puppies. Everybody loves these cute little puppies. Cute little puppies. Cute little puppies. Everybody loves these cute little puppies.
Aww.
I like donkeys, and I like hogs, and I like snakes, and I like dogs. I like chinchillas with fluffy little tummies, but there's nothing cuter than cute little puppies. Cute little puppies. Cute little puppies.
Okay,
Everybody
yeah.
loves these cute little puppies. Cute little puppies. Cute little puppies. Everybody loves these cute little puppies. I'm not that loud.
Aww.
I'm just doing at the camera.
Uh-huh.
He likes me.
Come on, Bandit.
You're not a bandit. Oh, I caught him in a
Did you?
big old trap.
It's Daisy. It's a her. Let go of her leg.
Watch out. There it is.
I wonder, what's the puppy's names? Did you name any of them?
Jim, Bob, Rooster.
Jim, Bob, and Rooster. You're a goof.
It was so good. Get away! Get away!
Little puppy squabble.
No! Don't squabble again. It was so good. Get away! Get away!